there comes a point where we got to get out of the notebook and we've got to get into action a little bit. Yes. And I think what underscores all of that is restoration. Always, all the time. I'm a huge proponent. Like, how are we making sure that we're taking impeccable care of ourselves and that we're coming into this transition work of letting go, reflecting, experimenting with a full tank of gas? It's really hard to get a car moving again if it doesn't have any gas.
Hi there. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joanna Ehresman.
And I'm Leah Alter.
And this is WomenShare, a celebration of women in financial services. Before we get started, we'd like to thank Catchlight, our presenting sponsor of WomenShare. Catchlight helps firms save time and grow their assets by predicting which leads will most likely convert and suggest content and ways to engage them. Learn more at catchlight.ai/WomenShare. That's catchlight.ai/WomenShare.
And today we are joined by Shannon Schottler, a professional coach specializing in life and career transitions. She says, think about those messy middle seasons of life where you're wanting something different, but may not be sure what it is or how to take steps forward. She's passionate about creating sacred spaces for folks to restore, reflect, and experiment. When Shannon is not coaching, she is the host of the Messy, Mucky Middle and Workplace Hugs podcasts. This is an extra special personal thrill for me to get to connect with Shannon right here on WomenShare. Shannon and I met virtually, I guess, in 2020 when we were part of a group coaching container led by the amazing Amy Young. To say that time was transformative for us both professionally and personally is definitely an understatement. And in addition to being a wonderful friend and support, Shannon has also coached me during my transition into entrepreneurship. And I'm just so forever grateful for the guidance and care and love that she has provided me. I'm just so excited to get to share her with all of you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Shannon. Welcome to WomenShare.
Oh my goodness gracious. What a, warm intro. Can't
all
beat
true.
that.
True.
I'm so happy to be here and talk more about where transitions and financial services intersect. There's a lot of overlap here.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's what we're excited to dig into. Like you said, we were chatting about this a little bit before we started recording. So I think especially in our industry, advisors and their teams, they work with clients who are navigating the messy middle. So whether it's a career change, loss of a loved one, promotion, any sort of big life transition, or maybe not so big, I guess, right? Just curious, how do you define the messy middle? And what are some signs that we could look for to know if we or someone we know might be in that space?
Yeah, I love this question. Okay, and you guys you're going to be privy to a new metaphor I'm using for the first time ever on this podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
Yes. So on the whole, how do I define messy middles? They're periods of our lives where something is ending, but we're not sure necessarily what the new beginning entails just yet. So even if we look at the examples you mentioned, somebody who wants to make a career change, something is ending. They don't like their corporate career anymore. They're wanting to make a shift. The loss of a loved one, something is ending. A promotion, something is ending. That one might be more of a fun flavor, so to speak. The birth of a child, a fun flavor. So that's like high level. Something is ending, but we're still figuring out what the new beginning is. I can now, thanks to your podcast, who inspired me with this new metaphor, break it into 3 flavors. I think there's 3 flavors that people might come into transition with. We're going to do ice cream flavors, you guys. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Who doesn't love ice cream?
Speak my language.
Yes, great. So the first flavor is Rocky Road. Like that is an ice cream flavor of transition. So these are the people, if I'm thinking about, financial services professionals, these are the people who are coming into you feeling really disenchanted and disengaged with life right now. They're on a rocky road. Maybe they're experiencing things like death, divorce, a job loss, or an illness, right? They didn't want or plan for any of those things to happen per se. And they may be in a little bit of denial about the mushroom, or not the mushrooms, the marshmallows. I hope there's not mushrooms in there, but there's
The magic one?
yeah, the marshmallows, the nuts, the like whatever is on their rocky road right now. And I think what's true with this flavor, as I think back to clients I've coached, is that they're struggling to like let go and move on from the place that they've been. I also want to offer some feelings that these people might be coming into time with you with. They're feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling super low in energy. They're feeling lonely. They're feeling defensive, maybe even like victimized, cynical about what's happening in their life. So that's one flavor that maybe some of us are more familiar with. Another flavor is Neapolitan ice cream, right? It's like, it's basic, you know, there's no inclusions in Neapolitan ice cream, but there's like 3 different flavors going on within this one flavor. So that is the person that is trying to make some quiet time and reflect a little bit. They're trying to turn inward and take stock of their life, because like right now they can't tell what flavors they're working with, because it's like Neapolitan ice cream that's like all mixed up. And so they're needing to sort for like, what's chocolate, what's vanilla, and what's strawberry in my life right now. They might also be searching for a sense of meaning, again, because they've got like so much flavor happening within one flavor. They're like, I don't know, like, what is the meaning in all of this? I think of this as the people planning for retirement, maybe. You know, they're like, wow, I just got a lot of identity in my work. And now it's like, that was my chocolate flavor. And now I'm like, I don't know, am I moving towards strawberry, vanilla? What's going on here? That might be the empty nesters. And that might be the midlife crisis people, you know, who are like, I've been doing this thing for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I'm not done with my career yet, but I don't want to do it anymore. This flavor isn't tasting good anymore. So how might people
can relate?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So how might people be feeling if they're like working with the Neapolitan ice cream? They're feeling like mood swings. That's the other reason why I picked Neapolitan for this metaphor. It's like some days they're strawberries, some days they're chocolate, some days they're vanilla. And those mood swings are often the result of like maybe some loneliness, some grief about what they're moving through, and the feeling of like a loss of what's been familiar. I was just talking with a client literally right before I jumped on of like, he's considering leaving a profession he's been part of for 18 years. Like, yeah, that's going to be a loss of the familiar, but also like a little bit exciting in the sense of a rebirth of purpose.
Right.
So that's flavor number 2. Flavor number 3 is like a zingy lemon sorbet.
Ooh.
I was thinking you were going vanilla. I'm like, what's the vanilla? Zingy sorbet.
No, we're going like zingy lemon sorbet. So this is like the energized flavor of transition. I think of this as the people who are experiencing like a promotion or an impending birth of a child or an impending like marriage or something that's on the whole, like usually something people look forward to or are excited about. They're thinking about like, how am I going to enact this new identity? I've never maybe been these things before, or it's been a long time since I've been these things, a boss, a mom, a leader, whatever it is. And so they're in a space of wanting to explore and experiment within their newer shifting identities. So what are the feelings that those kinds of folks are coming into your office with? They're restless, they're optimistic, they're eager, they're wanting to like learn and connect with all the people. Those are our zingy lemon sorbet transitioning folks. So go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think that there's a little bit of that like imposter syndrome that shows up during lemon zingy of moving into these kind of new things, as like you said, a boss, a leader, a mother, a wife, whatever it is, right? Of like questioning like, can I really do this? Am I really prepared for it?
Yeah, that flavor punches you in the palate a little bit, right? Like,
yeah.
It's like, oof, like, wait a second, wasn't expecting that sometimes. So of course, imposter syndrome can come with that territory. And that's where some of the work is like, how do we support a client? For me, I would say 90% of the coaching plans I have with folks they're wanting clarity and they're wanting confidence. Yes. Confidence said differently is like, I feel like an imposter. So when we're working on confidence, or somebody saying, I wish I felt more confident in this new identity that I'm taking on, for me, I break that down into how do we support you in shifting your relationship to experiments? Because you're going to be in like a beginner mind again a little bit. So how do we support you in like, it's okay to be beginning and trying and experimenting with things again because you're not an expert anymore? And self-compassion. How are we growing their muscle to practice being gentle with themselves? Because if we keep trying stuff, but I didn't ask you guys if I could swear on this podcast, but if we keep beating the crap out of ourselves, then we're not going to want to keep experimenting. So it's it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where we never do build our confidence because we're afraid to experiment or we're being really hard on ourselves every time we try to. So,
yeah. Well, and you touched on this a little bit, but like how do you recommend we support ourselves when we recognize like, ooh, this is a transition's a coming?
Yeah.
But also how do we support other people who are facing their own transitions? Kind of a two-parter on that.
Yeah. Yeah. If I had to boil it down to 4 pieces, I think 3 of which are in my bio. Let go, restore, reflect, experiment. So depending on what flavor you're in, like my Rocky Roaders, their work is letting go. So how do you support yourself through that? You take inventory. You ask yourself that question, like, what am I holding to that it wants to be released in my life right now? Like, am I really holding tight to my past corporate identity or to my past identity as a mom if I'm becoming an empty nester? Can we begin to find some ease, some softness, some like less grippiness in that one? For my Neapolitan flavors, in that sifting and sorting, like what's chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, it's more of that reflection space. So can I make conscious time? And if we're supporting people in that, can we be encouraging them to take that time? Thinking of married couples, I'm thinking of honestly terrible, I'm going to go here already, terrible financial advisors that I've heard about from my clients, who the financial advisors are almost like have such a state of fear within their own nervous systems that even if the client is like ready to go and step in, they are terrified to like give them the green light almost. Or terrified to even like consider the possibility with them almost. And it can really turn some people off, you know?
Right.
So can we still be an encouragement of saying like, hey, like maybe there's some things you want to think about here without killing the dream altogether. And then the experimentation piece that I talked about, especially for my Zingy lemon sorbet people, like we got to be in that mindset of I'm a beginner again. I'm doing this thing that I've potentially never done before, or it's been a long time. I am going to have to try some stuff and see what works. I'm thinking of initial consult that I had this morning where like that was the space that woman was in. There comes a point where we got to get out of the notebook and we've got to get into action a little bit. Yes. And I think what underscores all of that is restoration. Always, all the time. I'm a huge proponent. Like, how are we making sure that we're taking impeccable care of ourselves and that we're coming into this transition work of letting go, reflecting, experimenting with a full tank of gas? It's really hard to get a car moving again if it doesn't have any gas. So how are you doing a great job of keeping gas in your tank? Sorry, I'll pause there.
You're blowing my mind,
that
Shannon.
was amazing.
Well, and actually the last part of talk experimentation, Leah, I have heard like you were such a great coach to me about that, or giving me advice around what came to mind is you'd say, you can always make a different choice, right? Like when I was like, oh, we're starting this podcast and, you know, and like, I just so change averse or, you know, just in my head.
Well, and I think too, like when you can recognize that somebody is both excited, but also questioning or isn't sure about what that next move is, but you can tell that there's like a little bit of lemon zest happening.
Yes.
It's like, how can you hold space or create space for someone to be able to kind of work through it and talk through that, right? So like when I went to Joanna initially with the idea for this podcast, she was like, "Ooh, yes." But then there was a lot of, "Ooh, but wait, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she had to like work through that. And rather than me be like, here, let me list all the reasons why this is the best idea ever and you have to do it with me, I was like, okay, take the time. Let's talk about it. Come back, And when you give people permission to work through all of the things,
Yeah.
then they find the answers themselves without feeling like they were led there.
Totally. Like, let's give some spaciousness here because they're messy, and like, it's not going to be perfect. I'm thinking of my daughter is really in a season of baking. I have a 9-year-old, you guys. And it's like beautiful to watch her be in the messy middle of like learning how to follow a recipe and read instructions. Like, it's going to be imperfect. And so can we be really mindful about surrounding ourselves or being the kind of person for someone who's going through mess that is okay with the messiness, that is okay with like, oops, honey, you put a tablespoon of baking soda in there. We only need a teaspoon. It's like, no big deal.
Yeah.
Like, we'll figure it out. Can we surround ourselves with those kinds of people? And can we be those kinds of people for others?
Yes.
That's why I'm so passionate about this work to begin with, because I think our whole world needs a little bit more of these, frankly, like life skills. Like, they're life skills to know how to let go, reflect, restore, experiment. And the more we have that, the more we can all be a little bit more compassionate with each other in the mess.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because nobody gets to avoid the messes. No
Absolutely
one.
not.
Yeah.
Not one of us.
Haven't found
They're
them yet.
coming for you. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Before we dive deeper with you, Shannon, I want to give a quick update from Catchlight, our presenting sponsor. So for our listeners who like podcasts that help with your professional goals, which is I'm assuming all of you, you're listening to this, we've got a recommendation for you. Catchlight hosts a podcast called Grow Organically, where Dan Gilmartin, the head of marketing at Catchlight, hosts candid discussions with wealth management and financial pros.
Each episode breaks down growth factors at wealth management firms and how organizations can continue to be forward thinkers in today's competitive landscape. Add Grow Organically to your podcast rotation, and you can learn more about that at catchlight.ai/WomenShare. That's catchlight.ai/WomenShare.
Okay, so Shannon, let's talk about the intersection of money and life transitions. And you touched a little bit about like the role of a financial advisor, but what are some of the opportunities or the pitfalls that you've seen with your clients?
Yeah. So there's 3 that stick out to me. The first one is letting like generic financial fears lead the way. So oftentimes I'll have clients come in and be playing to like the invisible audience. I think there can also be like the invisible audience of financial fears. Like, they're like, oh, but what if I don't find the job by November? Or what if I don't? Da, 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 da. So what is the antidote for that one? It's facts. Like, facts can be a part of your transition plan, right? Like, make the budget. What is your true bare bones budget? What can you truly cut? What do you really need? I'm going to put a stake in the ground and say, after 8 years of doing this work with clients, I would say on average, I'm finding the number to be about 35%. People can cut about 35% of their expenditures, which is, I think, a higher number than anyone thinks, right?
Yeah.
But we don't know that until we actually start dealing with facts instead of just like allowing our fears to lead the way and keeping us with those golden handcuffs on all the time.
I mean, and I can speak from my own experience, right? Like that was a big part of my transition, big part of it. And it's something that I have to go back and do regularly, which is look at my budget, look at where I'm spending money, make sure it's still all aligned and working. But that practice is, I go, oh, okay, I'm good. I'm fine. Continue.
Yeah.
But just being able to like know that it's okay rather than I think it's okay is such a huge relief in being able to like just continue on.
Yes. That's a common question I'll ask clients of what information would be useful for you to make this decision, of like whatever decision, if they're weighing between 2 jobs or whatnot. And oftentimes a big question is, should I stay or should I go with the job that I'm in, if it is a career transition they're thinking about? And it's when I ask that question, what information would be useful? It's like, well, how much money do I really need? You know? So it's like, just sit down. It doesn't have to take forever and it doesn't have to be perfect. Like you can change it, you can modify it. I'm remembering my own transition 8 years ago now. We cut everything, you know, and then we realized like, oh, that we went like scorched earth just in case. And then we slowly added things back, you know, like
we could probably have electricity again. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No AC this summer, y'all.
Exactly. But it's like when you really start to think about it, it's like, oh, wow, they're really, of course, this isn't true for everyone, but for a lot of people I work with, there is wiggle room. There are truly like fixed versus variable expenses that we can play with here a little bit to make things possible that might otherwise seem impossible.
One other comment and I know you have 2 other points you want to get to on this, but I really liked that question that you prompt your clients with of like, what information would be helpful? Because what I find, I just keep cycling in the worry. Totally. And that's like, and the way to kind of stop that is to ask yourself, well, what am I doing about this? Like, what would help me get out of this? So
what do I need?
Taken. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So then the second one that I see a lot is thinking that this transition that you're moving through is going to be your financial forever. So what is the antidote for that? It's like, okay, can we just make a plan for the right now? And I'm going to give you guys a really like tender real life example for me. My dad passed away in 2023. When he started hospice 6 months before that, I remember sitting down with my husband and saying like, I want to spend as much time with my dad as possible, but I don't know what's going to happen to my business, so and so on and so forth. And I was so sure it was like, this is going to be my financial forever if I cut back on my coaching hours this year. And realizing like, wait a second, let's just say hypothetically, I lose 50K this year because I don't run group programs or something like that. That's just for right now. This isn't forever. Would I give up $50,000 to spend more time with my dad as he moves through transition? Hell yes. So can I look at it as I'm not choosing to give up that income forever. I'm choosing to do it for 6 months, for a year. So, and it's a trap that I see others fall into. Like we make it mean that we're never going to make this kind of money again, blah, 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 blah. Like, what if that's not true? What if it was just for the next 6 months and then you can change your mind again? I'll pause there.
It. Yeah,
okay.
No, I'm like,
we're both like,
yeah. So then the third one is what I call like the all or nothing mindset. So on the flip side, I will have these clients, I'm thinking of an individual I was talking to yesterday that they're like, go big or go home. Like, I can't start until I'm finished. So these are the folks that are like, I want to quit. I want to quit my job and just like have a clean slate, you know? And again, like what's the antidote for these folks? It's experimentation. Like, can we find a safe to fail way for you to test in to the new possible self without I don't know, like maybe totally taking a wrecking ball to your life.
I was gonna have to say burning your whole life down.
Yeah, and I can say this with like a degree of, I don't know, like pointing the finger at myself because this was my method and I didn't have to do it that way. You can if you want to. And again, like let's not impede clients who are in a more risk willing place than we are.
Sure.
But when we're doing experiments, let's try to target for like what's a short-term duration and limited scope. Those are the 2 things I encourage clients to focus on. Like, can we find a short-term duration and limited scope? You can expand length and scope from there. But, you know, if you want to start a business, can you find one client? Can you find one project? If you are thinking you want to be a stay-at-home parent, like, okay, can you try it for like a week and see how it feels?
Yeah.
Like, what is that like?
And you'll definitely change your mind. Okay.
Yeah. Or like you're in your retirement years and my husband is so sure that he wants to be a golf pro. So where it's like, okay, great. Like, can you shadow for a day and make sure that that's what you think you want to do as an example? So those are the 3 that I see a lot.
Well, and I just in my own like experience, I went to my financial advisor and said, okay, this is what I'm doing. At least this is what I'm planning on doing. And I was not sure what I would be met with.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that I have amazing financial advisor team, and they said, okay, and plotted it all out for me and said, we say go for it.
Yes.
And it was like for real? I had this moment of like, you're telling me that like I can do this thing where like I don't know if I'm going to have any money coming in. And they were like, look, this is all the things that you've done to get yourself here so that you can do this. Now is the time to do this. And it just gave me this huge permission slip and a huge relief to maybe take that leap and take that chance. So I think it's really important to find people in your life, both personally and professionally, that are going to be the sounding boards that, are going to give you both the hard truth, but also encourage you to make the leap.
Yes, I could not agree more. I am hopeful that more financial advisors are moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys would know more on this than me. I'd be curious. I feel like generally speaking, people who are already working with a financial advisor, like they're doing a couple of things right, like they got their head screwed on straight, maybe, or they have a certain level of income, if it's worthy of being advised upon, like, I don't know, maybe they can like do a couple of things here. But the amount of times that I hear people come back to me and they're like, oh man, my financial advisor scared the shit out of me. I can't do anything. Like, it's brutal.
Find a different advisor.
Yeah.
Go find a new advisor.
Yeah, it can be brutal. So I think to just be mindful. Again, not every financial advisor is going to go get a coaching certification, but be mindful of when you're in advice giving mode, I guess, versus when maybe it's more appropriate for you to put on a coaching hat and ask some curious questions to really understand, like, what's at stake for this person if they don't make a change. Like, oftentimes people's mental health is at stake if they don't make a change. And if you knew that as their advisor, then would you still be giving the advice that you are today?
Well, and I think we have so many conversations with women advisors, and it comes up a lot in that they do feel like a coach. They do feel like they are supporting their clients in a much more holistic way than a balance sheet or a bank statement.
Beautiful.
So it is encouraging to see it going in that direction.
Yeah.
So Shannon, we ask every guest that comes on the show, what is the best career advice that you've received?
This was advice I got just recently. Surround yourself with those focused on contributions, not accumulations. And I want us to think about this going both ways, right? So like, you want to surround yourself with people who are focused on contributions, because then hopefully they're going to be like contributing to you, like you're learning your growth, but also like, can you be that kind of person as well? Like, how and who can you contribute to today so that we're creating a career culture of contributions and not just like stacking up the paychecks and the awards and the accolades all the time?
Ooh. Yes.
That sits with me a lot. I think about that every day. Like, how can I contribute today versus like be in the energy of trying to accumulate today?
I love that. I'm categorizing people in my head right now. Sorry.
Right?
But like, it's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
And also reflecting on like, oh, where do I fall? Wow. Okay. So if someone wants to learn more about your coaching programs, you in general, like, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, the best way is for sure on my website right now. They can also connect with me on LinkedIn at Shannon Schottler. My website's shannonschottler.com, my name. I am quiet on my Instagram profile as of the time that we're recording this episode. We'll see if it's different in the fall. But right now in the summertime when I'm recording this, I'm deep in farm mode. I can say more on that later.
And we'll have links to everything. Your website, your LinkedIn, all of that will be in the show notes of the show so people can go and find you. And Shannon, so outside of, your professional life, outside the office, what is something that we can celebrate with you today?
Yeah. Okay. So you guys, truth be told, I'm transitioning too, right? Like I'm always walking the walk right alongside my clients. I am currently in a process of integrating my identity of farmer back into my portfolio of identities. So I grew up on a farm in Wisconsin, and with my dad's passing last year, like that's just provided a lot of positive and hard, of course, shakeups in all of his kids' lives as we try to figure out how do we keep this farm going. So it's been so life-giving for me to be learning all these farming skills. Like I learned how to build fences. I learned how to drive a skid steer. I'm learning how to use a grease gun, how to like
I don't even know what those words mean.
I know, right? And I didn't either. But for me, like it is so life-giving to learn.
Yeah.
So, and I had my daughter in my lap, like just last week, we were scraping pony manure. Who knew it could be so fun, you guys?
Yeah.
We're scraping pony manure. And she's sitting on my lap as I'm teaching her how to like drive the skid steer. And it was so meaningful. So that's what's like feeling really celebratory in my life of figuring out how to integrate. And that's also why I'm not on Instagram very much these days. I'm just like
she's in the skid steer, people.
I'm in the skid steer and I'm loving the farm life right now, especially in the gorgeous weather that we've been having. So
yes.
Love that.
Well, and talk about working like such a different part of your mind, body, right? Like it's just a whole different type of productivity, which has to be really gratifying, right?
It makes me a better coach too. The more time I spend out in nature makes me a better coach. I used to spend half my time like creating content, and now I spend half my time at the farm. and it turns out like,
up. It's a level up.
It supports me just as much in my coaching practice to be at the farm. And
time to think of metaphors while you're working away.
Oh my gosh, yes. The amount of fence metaphors that my clients have heard in the last 6 months.
Or cultivation.
Harvesting. Love it.
Oh, totally.
Or manure.
Or manure. Composting. We got to compost that.
That's right. Amazing. Well, once again, we want to give a little shout out to Catchlight for backing our mission here at WomenShare. Catchlight's platform can build data-rich profiles and score your leads to help you increase efficiency and improve your conversions. Check them out at catchlight.ai/WomenShare.
Shannon, thank you for coming on the podcast. Like this was such a fun conversation. I just so enjoyed it and really just appreciate your perspective. And I am confident all of our listeners will as well.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, great. Well, that's our show for today. If ours is a mission that you want to share in, subscribe to WomenShare on your favorite platform. With that, I'm Joanna Ehresman.
And I'm Leah Alter. And I love you, Shannon. And we'll catch you on the next episode of WomenShare.